I'm Myra.
And I'm Danica.
And this is Black Women Healing Podcast.
And on this podcast, you can join us every Monday where we have raw, relatable conversations about mental wellness.
And we push you to do the work.
Let's heal.
This is Black Women Healing Podcast.
Hey, y'all. We're back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast. And we have another special guest as usual, Charletta. But before we get started with introducing our guest, we're going to start off with a quote by a Black woman. And so this quote says, "Anytime you get more than a couple of Black women together, you're creating this powerful mechanism for change." And this is by Kimberly Bryant. Myra, what are you thinking about this quote? Have you heard this before?
I haven't. Can you read it one more time?
Yes. Anytime you get more than a couple of Black women together, you're creating this powerful mechanism for change.
Oh, I have heard this quote before. Yeah.
By Kimberly Bryant. Yeah.
Yes. You were asking me what comes to mind when I hear it?
Uh-huh.
I think it kind of speaks for itself in that Black women together are powerful in numbers. We alone are powerful, but I think that when we come together, we shake shit up. Like we are a mega house. So just coming together, because I feel like Black women innately nurture, love, and are creative. And with those three things in numbers, taking over the world. So yeah. What about you? What do you think, Danica?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking the same. I guess I'm even thinking more of like this piece of Black women being able to love on each other, not just like everybody else, and how sometimes the world and society can even put Black women and Black people against each other. And so it's like, oh no, once we get together and we're able to talk about our different experiences, the different intersections of our identities and how we are different, but we're the same at the same time. I feel like that is like huge, and that's the power of the change. But I've never heard about this. Charlotta, what are you thinking about this quote?
So I've never heard that quote before either, but the first thing that came to my mind was Black Girl Magic. And it just makes me think like, when Black women come together, like you guys are saying, we are powerful forces. There's a lot of really, really strong, smart, and successful Black women out in the world. And when we all come together, or if we were all able to come together, we can really make a huge difference, because I feel like we know how to go against the norm. You know what I mean? We know how to face challenges, because we've always been, very strong, and, kind of the Undertaker, because we're smart, we're strong, but we're overlooked. You know what I mean? And so if we all did come together, we could make a really, really powerful impact in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was a good quote. And it also just, it's more than a couple of us right now.
So we're making change. We're making some changes.
Yeah, I like that one. But so let me go ahead and introduce our guest. So today we have Charletta. Charletta is a Spanish and French coloring book author and has a Spanish and French coloring book series. This series was designed to make learning new languages easy and fun. The series features the pronunciations to learn patterns, rhythm, and articulation of sounds in order to develop communicative competence. The simple picture to color features both the English and Spanish French words. It's the perfect bilingual coloring book. These will make great gifts and can be used as essential learning tools at home or at school. So I know some things about Charletta. Charletta's one of my hot girls, and so we know a little bit, but this right here, I had no idea about you. I think I found out on like social media. I'm like, well, you have a whole book. And so then as I start looking, I'm like, okay, and it's like this piece of learning new languages, especially for like children. So I'm like, oh my God, I haven't met anybody personally, and I don't even think I know anybody who's doing this in general, especially like a Black woman. So I just want to know, like, how did you gain interest in creating children's coloring books at that?
Yeah, so I have it's a 6 series book. Here are some of them. This is 4 of the 6 series. So it's three. I have 3 Spanish books and 3 French books. So I have your ABCs in Spanish and French, your numbers in Spanish and French, and then your colors in Spanish and French. So it's a series of 6 books total. And basically, how I came up with the idea, honestly, I was looking for another passive income. I was looking for another source of passive income, and I did a lot of research. And what I found was children's books, coloring books, planners, and journals are like really, really lucrative in like the print on demand world. And so I'm like, okay, let me see what I can come up with. You know what I mean? So when I decided to do a coloring book, I also knew that I wanted to do something that there was like a special niche to it. Like I wanted it to stand out, and I also wanted it, to make a difference. I believe my purpose in life is to make a difference in lives. So everything that I do, I really like to have things align like with that purpose. So I'm like, what can I create that I know will like help people? What can I create that I know will be like fun and it would just make a difference? And so I just came up like, oh, well, I could do bilingual because, I think in the world that we live in today, I think it's very, very important to learn another language. And I've been doing, like a lot of traveling over the past couple of years. And I'm just really seeing how important it is to just know a different language. You know what I mean? And so that's pretty much how I came up with the idea. I just wanted to do something that would help kids, that would just help and be lucrative. And so I was like, let's do Spanish and French.
Nice. I love hearing about that. I did some research too, and I saw the same thing of like when you're catering to kids, especially if it's something on Amazon, it is definitely very lucrative. So I love that. And even as I was checking out your coloring books, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like literally something for everyone. And I love how like the formatting, it looks amazing. And I was like, I have to order this for my daughter. So even as your bio was being read and you were like, these make great gifts, I was like, yeah, they definitely make great gifts because it's pushing, kids to learn other languages. And I feel like once you start learning a new language, that the next level is to travel and use that language. So she was reading the bio. I was like, this is very true. But I am curious about the challenging part of things. What has been the most challenging aspect of creating your coloring books, especially being that, you're utilizing French and Spanish. And when it comes to French and Spanish, like there's different forms of French and Spanish. So I'm curious what challenges you've seen that have arisen for you.
To be honest with you, one of the main challenges that I really came across while creating the books is really just making sure that the content was simple enough for a child to understand. Because actually Spanish and French, they're very, very similar. So if you can learn one of the languages, you can learn the other one fairly easy. But my books are geared towards like a 2-year-old and up. So I'm catering to the young children that are like in their early cognitive and developmental stages. You know what I mean? I'm catering to the kids that like, you're at that stage where you can talk. Okay, now let's learn our ABCs, our numbers, and our colors. So my content needed to be very, very simple, easily identifiable so that a 2-year-old could point to a 1 and say, uno, you know what I mean? Or point to a boot and say, bota, And so it became a little bit challenging. Some of the letters, like in the alphabet, were kind of challenging to find pictures and words to. X, for example, the only thing that I was able to find is xylophone. And I'm like, there's no way a 2-year-old will be able to pronounce a xylophone. You know what I mean? They may be able to recognize it, but trying to read a xylophone in year 2, 3, that's like impossible. And so those were like really just the main challenges, was just making sure that the content was simple enough and direct enough so that your toddler can be able to easily recognize it and be able to actually learn the word.
Yeah. And so, as we're kind of sharing, I want to rewind a little bit. You have mentioned that you traveling kind of sparked this interest. And so, I think that we're probably all pretty curious if English is your native tongue, and then why French and Spanish in particular. Like you kind of scratched it, but a little bit deeper.
So English is my native tongue. English is my native tongue. I know Spanish at a very beginner level. I think I went up to like Spanish 3 in high school. I've traveled to Mexico a few times. I've traveled to different countries where you do speak Spanish, and I have been able to just maneuver around with the basic knowledge that I have. I do not speak French at all. I did go to Paris, and I did kind of learn like a little bit of, just being able to just kind of get me around. But again, I'm in these places, and I'm forced to kind of learn just to be able, because you don't want to get scammed, you don't want to get robbed. So it's really important to be able to at least know like a bare minimum on how to, navigate in different places. And the reason I chose Spanish and French is because Spanish is actually the second largest spoken language in the world, and French is spoken in most countries worldwide. And so just that alone speaks volumes. Like you should know either or, you know what I mean? Also think about, when we're in high school and everybody was required at some point to learn a second language in high school. What was it? It was either Spanish or French, because they're very, very similar. So if you learn one, you can easily learn the second language, Another reason why I decided to go with Spanish and French, jobs. There are jobs where you get paid more if you're bilingual. Most companies that offer bilingual positions, they either want you to be bilingual in Mandarin, Spanish, French, or Russian. So if you know two of these, that can already, make yourself a little bit more marketable. And if you have a child and you're teaching your child at a young age to know this second language, it just adds value to them. You know what I mean? As they kind of navigate throughout the rest of their life, they're going to need to use that second language at some point, And lastly, living in LA. LA is heavily influenced by Mexican and Spanish culture. You know what I mean? It's a Mexican restaurant on every corner. Most of the people that we work with, they speak Spanish. A lot of contractors, they speak Spanish. And I think just living out here in general, it's super important for you to just know how to just have a basic conversation with somebody who doesn't speak the same language as you. So that's why I chose Spanish and French. Like I feel like if you don't know anything else, you should know Spanish or French.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, no, I love that the backing story piece too, of also like being honest of like you don't have to be like super fluent to like do this work, and you're introducing not only us but these little children to like some of these basic words, and then hopefully them being able to even have like you saying like this a basic conversation, but even through that they may want to learn more too. So it's also sparking that and putting that in their mind at a young age of like, hey, these are some beginning words and beginning languages. And if you want to go further, you can, but at least you do already have some of these basic knowledges of colors and shapes and things like that. So
Exactly.
I love
And
it.
you're already in that stage. Like a 2 or 3-year-old, they're already learning their ABCs or their numbers. That's the first thing they learn when they go to school. And so why not just learn your ABCs in Spanish? You know what I mean? And I feel like, they have that sponge so they can soak that stuff in. And if they keep at it, they won't forget.
Look, that is so true. I feel like being younger, you heard all the time, like, oh, you need to learn a different language while you're younger, because as you get older, it's more difficult to retain and soak up. That is so true. I believe it 1,000%. Because look, I have been trying to go back and learn fluent, because I have some basic knowledge, but I've been trying to go back, and it's different now. It's more difficult. So like seeing these little kids pick up, they pick up so easily.
Yes, they do. They pick up easy, and they don't. If you keep it up, like they legitimately won't forget. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it's like the perfect time when they're at that age to just kind of get them to learn as much as they can, because if they love it and if you keep at it, like, they won't forget it. Next thing you know, you'll have an 8-year-old who is speaking Spanish to their Spanish friends,
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like you kind of explained this a little bit, but can you walk us through your creative process when developing this children book, and how did you decide on like the themes, the characters, and the things for these different components?
Okay, yeah. So my creative process for creating the books, it was really straightforward. Again, I knew I wanted to gear the books towards kids and toddlers. So coming up with the themes was very easy, because I'm literally using the exact same things that I know that kids are learning when they are going to daycare and preschool, kinder, which is your ABCs, your numbers, and your shapes. And I remember when I was creating the books, people were asking me like, "Oh, are you gonna do? Are you gonna like? What else are you gonna do? Are you gonna do like sentences? Are you gonna do anything else?" And I'm like, "No, I really just want to stick to this, because those are the main things that kids are learning in their early developmental and cognitive stages." So I knew I wanted to stick to those themes: your ABCs, colors, numbers, and shapes. So that part was really easy. And then just pretty much coming up with like simple words. I didn't want the words to be too complex, because this is also the time where a lot of kids, they may not really know how to read that well, but they might be able to recognize something. Like, they may not be able to pronounce banana, but they know what a banana is. So I just really wanted to have pictures that were like as simple as possible, words that were as simple as possible, so that the kids, while they are learning, it just wouldn't be difficult for them. If something is easy to a kid, they're going to do it over and over and over. So I just created it in a way that it would make it easy for them to, retain. And like, I also included, so here's like an example. So like, simple dolphin, you know what I mean? Simple. Here's a Spanish word, the English word, and then you can just easily, sound it out. So I just wanted it to be as simple as possible, so that it just wouldn't be difficult for the kid. So that was like my thinking while I was creating the books.
But even as you're sharing, it's making me think about like adults can use this book too, just because the fact that even what you showing dolphin right there, right? Like, that's a word that probably would be used by an adult, right? But you're priming kids to use it. But as an adult, my brain kind of goes to, if I'm using Duolingo, for example, and I'm practicing, that might lay some foundation, but I feel like this is going to add on top of the foundation. Oh, okay. Exactly. And then also we have the side of things like when we bring in mental health, coloring is therapeutic. It's a form of meditation, because meditation is to calm your brain. So if you're coloring, you're not only coloring, you're learning, you're engaging in some self-care, and you're doing a form of meditation of you're calming your brain and being in the zone. So I love that. Especially now that you show the picture, I'm like, oh, I think I might need this for me.
Absolutely. And, it's a part of personal development. Personal development is also a form of self-care. You know what I mean? So I've colored all of them. All of my books I've colored myself. So it definitely can be used for an adult. I colored them. I actually really, really love to color. I think it's super relaxing. So I thoroughly enjoyed making these books.
Yes. You're beating us to our next question. That's what we want to ask about.
Myra, I feel like for sure. Have you given me an adult coloring book before? Maybe.
I possibly have. I feel like I bought that for a few people before.
Yeah, and so like this is for sure a Myra question, but like adult coloring in general, or coloring, not even adult coloring, it seems to be on the rise again, right? And absolutely, we love that. I have a few adult coloring books, and when I'm feeling anxious, or if I'm just having an overwhelming day, that's when I'll just color in. The adult coloring books are a little bit more detailed. They're like, they're not as open, right? Because with kids, you know, they need that open space. They need that. But it is something about outlining something. That's what I'm thinking of, just with
Yeah.
this question. So it's basically just asking, like, what's your relationship with coloring? And I'll leave it open since we're already talking about it. So Myra, you joining us on this too. What are we thinking about coloring?
Well, I personally, again, I love coloring. I think it just it just gives me the opportunity to just kind of not think, because I
Yeah.
have a really busy life. I don't have a whole lot of free time, and I'm very, like, I have the, I don't know if it's like right hemisphere, where I'm like really into arts and crafts. I love to paint. I
The right
love
brain.
DIY. I love coloring. I love things that like require me to just not think. And it's like a mental escape in a way. So that's why I enjoy coloring. I wish I could do more of it, which is why it was important to me to color my own books, because it kind of was like, well, let me test this out, but also I'm having fun because I don't have to think about it, because I actually really love to color, you know.
Yeah.
So for sure, it's like it gives me a mental escape for sure.
Yes, I love that. And I think for me, coloring is something I've never been good at. But now, as an adult, I find joy in doing the things I'm not good at and telling myself, you don't have to be good at this
What does that
because
even
I have a back.
mean? What does that
I,
mean? Not good at coloring? What do you
I feel like
mean?
it's not pleasing to the eye, but I'm definitely in a phase of my life right now where I'm trying to do more things I'm not good at because everything does not need to be a moneymaker. And I feel like that's where my mind goes, because it's like if I'm good at coloring, I need to be making a coloring book so that I can show y'all how I be coloring. Like that's where my brain would go. But because I'm not good at it, like I like doing it and not worrying about it. I like drawing a little something extra on the page and not worrying about it, right? Like have me and my daughter, we take turns and we color, and that could be it. She can make a mess, and I draw and color just as good as she does. So it's fun.
You know, I mean, just as you talk about that, like I've just never thought of coloring of having to look a certain way. I don't know. Like, so,
Hmm.
I mean, I guess it kind of goes like back to art, like it being whatever it
Yeah.
is, you know? Um, like I've never looked even at children's like coloring and been like, oh my goodness, this is, ugh, you know, type of thing. Like, no, like everybody is like, the coloring is good, but I get what you're saying though, but I just never had thought about like, people are bad at coloring, are like, oh no, you can't color. Like, no, everybody can in my eyes, but um
Well,
Some people
it's
yeah,
me.
that
that's what
if they
I'm
don't
thinking
color in
of.
the
Also
lines, they
with
don't think. Some
myself,
people are,
I
if
think,
they don't color in the lines, it's not good coloring.
That's me. Yeah.
oh,
And I feel like I don't know the right colors that go together. Like, I feel like in my head, I'll pick out the colors that I want to make sense. And then once I do it, I'm like, ooh, that don't really look right.
really?
Yes.
Huh. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess. I went to, I'm thinking of now my own childhood. I went to like a school that was focused on the arts and sciences for like a year. My mom took me out because she didn't like it. But I guess I learned a lot just about like art and creative expression
Mm.
that
Mm-hmm.
just, I guess, opened my eyes to, I never had seen it like that. Like any color can go together in my opinion. Like and I don't get me wrong, they did teach like the primary colors and, you know, how to make the secondary colors and all that stuff, but like art is art. If you want to draw on the line, draw on the line. If you want to draw on the side and make a little heart on the side, make a heart on the side. You know, like that's what it, whatever comes to you is what's supposed to be happening. But um yeah, I was thinking of like for me the coloring piece, like you're using different senses. So like I said, typically I struggle with anxiety, and so if I notice I'm feeling super anxious, where I have all these things on my mind, my brain is running a million thoughts at a second. If I color, then the senses that are happening is I'm using like that sense of touch, and I'm
Oh,
using
yeah.
that sense of sight. And so what happens is like it's kind of like grounding senses. And if people haven't heard of it, it's basically using like your five senses to ground yourself. And so I'm so occupied
Mm.
with looking at the coloring and using my hands to actually touch the coloring utensil to write that next thing I know, my brain is grounded and I'm calm and I'm not thinking about all the million different things at one time. And so I think for me, that's what coloring has been as an adult, you know?
Yeah. And that's exactly what I want to get into, right? Like now, like I said, I've accepted that, my coloring doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as I'm enjoying it. but I do want to take it to that next level of, I always tell clients, like, creating a coping tool bag. I want to throw that into my coping tool bag.
Yeah, I think we lost our guest. Let's see, what we're at 12:29. I seen her stuff froze. She probably gotta get back in here. 12:20.
That's completely okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we can mark the clip. Let's mark it. I marked it for you. It's at the 24 second mark, 24 minute mark.
Oh, dang, that's what it said. That's exactly what it said. Thank you. I'll put the actual time. Oh no, we only have one more question. Get back on here.
Wow, these episodes are going really good.
I know. I really like her episode too.
Yeah,
I love
me too.
like this piece of being like, hey, I was thinking of lucrative income and something to do. Like, I like it.
Sorry, you guys. My internet kicked me out.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We'll most definitely edit. But we go. I said, oh no, our guest is gone.
I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? And then I looked, my internet went out, but we're back. I'm so sorry.
I'm tired of talking about this coloring stuff. I'm out.
For real.
It was a good combo too. I was hearing you. I heard everything. I promise I heard everything.
No, it's cool. So
all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of shift our conversation back a little bit to just asking, because I'm curious, because Danica kind of talked about, you know, her coloring in school. For me, when I was in school, in elementary school in particular, this really sticks in my head. I went to a private school until like third grade. They were big on coloring, but who had the best coloring? It was like you got a prize. And so as Danica was sharing, I was like, wait, now everything is making sense. Like, we would literally get this big old piece of paper, took up your entire desk, and they would say, create something. And what they would do is, everyone in the school would do, a small school, they would hang it up outside of the school. So when your parent came, they would come and look for your picture. My picture was never hung up. So in my head, I didn't do art well. And so my mom would try to push me to do art at home. And I was like, I'm not really doing that. I don't really do it well. And she would always say, like, yes, you do. But for me, it was like, no, like, you see, it's never hung up in school. And so when Danica was sharing, I was like, oh, it gave me a flashback. That's why. So
they got you messed up. They got you messed up.
They got you messed up. That's not right. That's not right at all.
Yeah, no, like really thinking of that. Listen to what those types of things do. You're over here like, okay, I guess that's not just for me. Meanwhile, you could be like the next like huge Black woman artist. You know, like we don't know. That's so messed up. Dang, I'm sorry that happened to you.
It's okay, but again, it makes me, because I feel like now I'm in a state of reflection of, I don't feel like now, personally, I realize like I'm not that great. But again, letting that be my avenue that I do still do it. Because oftentimes we'll think that we're not good at something and we just don't allow ourselves to do it, even though we find joy in it. Because I love to color. Yes, I'm not that good to me, but I find joy in it. And so with our next question, it's having me think about just coloring books utilized at home in the classroom setting, and kind of just telling us, how do you see coloring books being used as an essential piece of learning? Because I do feel like they can be essential. Again, going back to Danica sharing about, you know, how it was a big thing at her school, and then even thinking about the material that you're creating, how do you kind of envision it for the future and even, you know, the upcoming future?
So I definitely think it'll be very essential in the classroom and in a at-home setting. I feel like I'm already, you know, seeing that. And an example I can give you is I have a coworker. He lives in Seattle and he is Spanish. He's Spanish, and they have a 2-year-old daughter. And so they're teaching their daughter how to speak Spanish. So mom talks to the daughter in Spanish only, and dad, he talks to her in both, but their bonding thing, which I think is adorable, is they actually color together. They color together every day. Like, that's his thing. He's going to get with the daughter and they're going to like color all day. So I sent him my books. I'm like, wow, well, let me just give you these books since you're already teaching your daughter Spanish. and you already love to color, and the reason why he's like so into coloring is because he just wants her to have that free space to just do whatever she wants and just create whatever she wants. So he was telling me how like she's coloring the books and like she's saying the airplane like avion, so she's like actually like learning as she's coloring these books, and it's creating a bonding time for baby and dad because it's something that they were already doing, and now she's like learning more. So I really think that coloring books, especially the bilingual ones, will be super essential in the kindergarten, the daycare age, like just that age, because it's like tackling a lot of things. You're learning things that you were already learning in your early developmental stages. Then we're going to add in, you're going to learn another language while you're learning, you know what I mean? So you're learning your numbers in English and in Spanish or French. And number two, you're being allowed to color, which is giving you that creative space. You know what I mean? It's tapping into that right hemisphere. I don't know if it's right or left. I don't know. But you're tapping into that hemisphere where, you can get your creative juices flowing, and you could color an airplane green or yellow and it be okay, So it's just allowing the kid and a toddler to already be able to tap into their creative mindset while also learning fundamentals of education. So I think now and in the future, I think that I find these books to be very essential. And my hopes one day is that they will be a staple, and at daycares or in kindergarten classes for sure.
Yes, they definitely will, for sure. Do you have any takeaways for our listeners? You dropped a lot of just like knowledge. And overall, I feel like if you listen to this and you had no urge to buy this book, you didn't really listen, right? Because it has so many layers to it. When we're talking about self-care, we're talking about creating bonds and engaging with others. It's about making time for yourself. It's about just existing and having fun. Like, so many layers to it, right? And you're learning at the same time. So anyway, any takeaways you have for our listeners?
So my takeaway would be, I would say to all the listeners, if you do not know another language, learn one. If you don't know another language, just learn one. If you have small children, nieces and nephews, and they don't know another language besides English, just learn one. It doesn't hurt. There's literally nothing negative about learning another language. And I think that we are at a point where, everybody wants to be their best self. Everybody wants to be able to personally develop themselves at the highest, at the highest level as they can, because everybody just wants to be, a marketable, or for the sake of this conversation, a high value person. You know what I mean? And just being able to learn a second language, it just adds on to your personal development. And I think that we are coming into a time where I think eventually it's going to be very, very important to know how to navigate throughout the world, knowing something more than just English. So my takeaway is learn it. And if you don't know it, make sure you're teaching your small children this and instill this into them so that they will be able to, as they get older and navigate through the world, they'll be more marketable and more, personally developed. And like I said, there's literally nothing negative about learning another language. So that's my takeaway.
Yes. And y'all, she came on here talking about she was so nervous. And do y'all hear how she killed the whole episode? Wow.
I was nervous. I still am.
You did great. And we thank you for coming on here, sharing this tool, and really diving into why you created it. Great resource. And that's it for this episode. We thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for having me. And if you guys want my books, you can find them on Amazon.
Yes. We will share all of that in our show notes, the direct link, and on our page. We'll be promoting it.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Of course.